Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate with Gwen Price. And I have as my guest Lana Watier, my broker of record, and also Trina Tallon with Neighbourhood Dominion Lending. Hi, ladies.
Hi, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we are still in the depths of COVID. And I mean, just yesterday, Premier Ford announced some changes again and restricting the number of people that can gather inside or outside. But he's targeting, of course, the private functions, which have kind of got out of control, and people are wanting so much to get back to normal, and it's really hard. I totally get what's going on, but we've got to somehow get through the end of this, right?
Yeah, we do.
And it certainly has affected what's going on. COVID has definitely become a factor in what's going on in the real estate world. And I mean, there's such a demand for houses, and there's still a shortage of listings.
Yeah, there definitely is still a shortage of listings, although I have seen the real estate market quiet a little bit in the last couple of weeks. It's not as frantic as it was even a month ago, where you're competing against 12, 15 offers. We still are finding a little bit of competition, but it's more in the normal competition range where you've got a couple of offers, maybe 3, 4, which is a little bit more typical for our market instead of the 12, 15 that we'd seen in the past. So things are quieting a little. I think a lot of it has to do with back to school,
yeah,
and the ordeal that has been, and
that's sort of typically our, we always, at least I always say mid-September is when it starts again, because people do focus on getting the kids back to school. And this year was definitely more complicated for most families just because of the busing situation. And do I send them back to school or do I homeschool? And I know it's such a big problem for a lot of families, like, to go through that. So their mind wasn't necessarily on real estate, but it seems, I just find again, the calls are picking up again. And our shortage of listings isn't as bad as it was, because I think for the month of August, we were down about 3% from last year. And then year to date, we were down about still 17%. And well, I'll just mention that the average sale price is up for the whole of the real estate board, up about 12% from last year. And for the city of Greater Sudbury, it's up about 11% to around 330 is our average sale price, hovering around that for the city. So that's up, we were at about 300 at the end of 2019. So we are up. So, but it's still tough on buyers, especially first-time buyers. What's going on with mortgage approvals, Trina?
Well, lately, I would say that the biggest issue is coming from appraisals. And the reason being is that when there's a purchase price for X amount of dollars, let's say $320,000, and then we get offers for $380,000, that's a huge change or difference between the asking price and the actual purchase price. And what's happening with that, because of the lack of inventory, is that folks are also giving a lot shorter days for their conditions for financing, if they even put one in. And I had a few stories about this that just happened in the last week. I had a couple wanting to go in and purchase a $525,000 house and no financing condition, but it was $40,000 over the asking price. And their credit is fantastic, their income's fantastic, the affordability ratios are there. But what happens is when an appraiser goes in, and if that property comes in at $20,000 less than your purchase price, not only do you have to come up with the down payment based on your purchase price, but if you want to keep the home, then you also have to come up with the difference between what the appraised value is and the purchase price, when a seller won't change their sale price. Correct, ladies?
Yeah, and like, I follow a few different Facebook groups, and in the States, they're going through the same thing. And And they're coming up with all kinds of clauses and conditions, and but the seller has to be willing to accept, you know, that it's conditional maybe on appraisal, or it's conditional on this or conditional on that. And people feel, you know, they want that house so bad, and they'll throw that offer out there unconditional, but it can have consequences if you do.
And the part of what's going on too is that what a lot of folks don't realize is that anytime there's a refinance that happens, an appraisal is required for the refinance to see where the property value is. So that takes up a lot of appraisers' times, because there are a ton of refinances happening right now because the market is so high.
Yeah.
People are taking that opportunity to pull a whole bunch of equity out of their homes right now to either pay off debt that they're paying interest on, or just to pull it out for a rainy day because they may want to go on a trip once it's all over, or they want to do renovations to their home, anything like that. So refinances are really up because of this market spike in value. The second thing is that lenders and mortgage insurers have automated valuing systems going on in the background, where if we get a purchase price for something that is $40,000 or $50,000 over the asking price, if it's an insured mortgage, so less than 20% down, and it fits within their automated valuation system, they're pretty good with it and won't call it an appraisal. But what's happened is with any mortgage, doesn't matter how much you're putting down, if it is out of line with their valuating systems, they're calling for appraisals. And what happens when an appraisal has to be done, so first of all, we have a major shortage of appraisers right now because there's so much work for them to do. And a rush now with an appraiser is no longer like, you know, a day or two. Sometimes it's a week, depending on the week, because they're just there's so much going on, right, with the market. What has to happen once that appraiser goes out, then they have to write their report up. Then I have to get their report. I review it just to make sure that everything is okay within the report. And then it has to go to the lender. The lender has to review it to be sure that not only are they concerned about value, but also all the other specifications of the home, you know, electrical, foundation, things like that. But then it also has to go to the mortgage insurer, and they have to take a look at it. And I had a situation last week where I was able to get the appraisal done within 24 hours and up to the lender. But it took the mortgage insurer, and when I say mortgage insurer, I mean CMHC, Genworth, or Canada Guarantee. They got the appraisal at 9:30 in the morning, and it took them until 5:30 Friday night to review it. And it's basically a 10-minute job, rubber stamp, and send a note back to the lender. And our condition of financing was Friday night at 6, and we heard back at 20 to 6 that we were good to go.
That's scary, because everybody's lives is on the whole, not only the buyers, but the sellers as well, right?
Well, and I think that it's very important for our whole industry to understand what is happening with appraisers and appraisals right now, and how loaded they are with the work that they have to do. And this isn't pre-COVID time where we could play like big hardball with these offers. I'm giving my opinion right now.
Yeah. You're allowed.
If I have the client approved and all we're waiting for is for the appraisal to come in, I almost feel like the financing condition needs to be a 2-step process, because if we need one more day to get that appraisal approved, there should be like a little bit of give and take there. That's my kindness and wanting humankind to get along a lot better part of me.
Well, and appraisers must be afraid to answer the phone sometimes, because they're probably going to get berated by whoever, right? Oh, you're not doing it fast enough. Why can't you do it now? So they're under a lot of pressure and stress.
It's also when they can't come in at the purchase price value, because the comparables just aren't there. And earlier in the week, I had a house that the appraiser came in at $25,000 less than what the purchase price was. And at that point, the seller really had no choice but to decrease the purchase price because it's been appraised. And, you know, the appraisers, when it comes to comparables like that with this particular home, there's not a lot of discrepancy that can actually happen. I guess your seller also has the option to get an appraisal done. Is that?
Well, I guess
that
anybody
happen?
has that option.
Yeah. Anybody has that option, but I agree with you, Trina, that once it's appraised, it's appraised. They, you know, at the end of the day, the property is only worth what the bank is willing to lend on it. And if the bank isn't willing to lend that amount of money, then there's your value, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of in play in the background that most people don't understand. These lenders and these insurers, they're regulated by the government, and the government has their ears all the time because the government's sitting there saying, okay, we may be concerned about a crash. And then if everyone is overextended, that's why they're being so tough right now on income. You know, pre-COVID, there were things that we could do with income and make exceptions for. And, you know, like for example, a nurse that's been working for a year and a half is only guaranteed 35 hours a week, but actually makes full-time plus overtime and all this kind of stuff. They would give allowances to annualizing income. So let's say 2 years instead of just her year and a half and averaging that out. And they're really pulling back on these income exceptions now. A nurse is a bad example. Pick any other industry that's maybe not a non-essential industry, but they're starting to really, the insurers are really pulling back on all their exceptions for income. And the second part to that a lot of folks don't realize is that if you put between 20 and 35% down, even though you're not paying the CMHC fee, the banks may be in the background. So they're still following the insurer's guidelines because they don't want that debt on their books if there's a default.
Well, yeah, the banks don't want to be in the home ownership business.
No.
They want to be in the lending business. That's their job. They don't want to own the house. They just want to collect their revenue from it. So it's understandable that they're a lot more conservative when it comes to the allowances that have to be made. And I think rightfully so. I think it's good for everybody.
Well,
And the unknown,
we as taxpayers, right, we're the ones who it all falls back on at some point in time. And as far as what people are calling COVID money, you can't really use that as your income, right? When you're trying to buy a house.
So let's talk about that our taxes. So CERB and CEBA and income that corporations or businesses get as incentives to keep employees employed and not off CERB, they don't count as income at all. And you actually cannot use them for down payment either purposes. So I've come across that. There was an instance in Southern Ontario where the lender found out that the purchaser didn't get CERB, but that the corporation that they were working for received the supplement for employment, and they wouldn't allow the client to use the income that they earned during the time that the business was getting that supplement as down payment.
Oh,
It's complicated, isn't it?
And it's not all lenders or banks that are, it's purely, a lot of it is super situational right now.
yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important to be in touch with your mortgage broker as a realtor when you're doing these deals, because this stuff that's happening, like that's not my area of expertise. So that's why we rely on Trina to get this information and get this stuff done when we can. That's why you need your pre-approval in place, people.
Yeah. We can't emphasize that enough, right? Because again, when you're going into these multiple offer situations, the seller and the seller's agent are relying on what the buyer and the buyer's agent say, right? And if they're saying, oh, I'm pre-approved, but in fact, maybe they're not pre-approved anymore. Maybe they were before and they're not now. So everybody's lives is on hold based on what is being presented in an offer situation, right? And you're waiting.
And a lot of people think that their pre-approvals are good for 90 days. And I tell people, or 120 days, whatever the bank may lay out or whomever, that's about a rate guarantee. That is not about your life and your situation.
Yeah.
And so if you get laid off, or you get divorced, or you go buy a truck, or
Yeah.
you co-sign for someone, well, any life change that you have or any credit change that you have, you're back to square one and you need a whole new pre-approval.
Yeah.
So clients that have seen me in January for pre-approval and are now finally found something that they're interested in, they call me up and say, okay, Trina, are we still good? Are we good to go? Like, okay, guys, well, has anything changed? You know, have you changed jobs? Are you still working? Have you bought anything? Have you had a kid? Like, what's happening in your life? Because it's been almost a year since we've chatted, kind of thing. So it's always good before you go into a situation, especially if you're going into multiple offer situation, to touch base with your mortgage agent and make sure that you're still good to go.
Yeah.
And be
Well, and
prepared.
that's what,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Be
that's what
prepared
your
to have-
realtor's for. That's what the mortgage representative's there for, is guidance. It's not like we're trying to force anybody to do something. And in fact, we want to make sure that everything that's needed is done ahead of time, and that we're not trying to sort of after the fact get caught up with things that should all have been in place before they put an offer in. And just, you know, Sudbury's doing really well through all of this, but
For sure.
but you know, and I'm glad, again, I live in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, because you know, there's some,
When?
don't tell, yeah, we don't want them all coming here, right? But Sudbury's doing pretty well, like in terms of COVID, but also there's people still, you know, they've got some good jobs. Yes, there's people that are definitely struggling right now, and through this winter, we'll probably struggle even more. And we hope that, you know, we can get through this sooner rather than later. That's for sure. Like, nobody has a crystal ball. Everybody keeps saying, well, what are you asking me? Well, what do you think is going to happen? Well, I'm like everybody else. I'm just waiting. You know, I'm just looking to see what's going on. But in general, Sudbury is doing pretty well through all this.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed we stay that way.
Yeah, and certainly when we list a property, we are, you know, we've got a whole set of protocols that we have to follow in terms of the showings to make it as safe as possible for people to go through. So, you know, we've got that covered. We, you know, as professional realtors, we should be abiding by what the seller is asking us to do. If you want a mask, we wear a mask. And I wear a mask almost all the time, really. You know, I'm out and about all the time. So, but, you know, we have to respect what the seller wants us to do when they're coming through their house at any given time, but even more so during this COVID.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm still, I'm always the eternal optimist, but I'm feeling pretty confident about Sudbury, that's for sure. And again, you know, like we're experiencing a shortage of listings, so people are thinking, you know, is it a good time? It is, and we're still, our weather's still pretty decent. We haven't had snowfall yet, so.
It's beautiful. I just want to be at the cottage right now.
I know it is, it's beautiful today in particular, so yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. Again, you know, it's always good to chat and see what's going on in each of our lives. And but yeah, I'm pretty optimistic again.
Yeah, me
Me
too.
too.
That's a
Absolutely.
good chat today.
So if you know, if anybody's got any real estate questions, you can reach out to me or Lana, and definitely for mortgage information, you can reach out to Trina, and I'll have all that contact information.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks.
ladies.
Okay.
Have a super day.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.